Hello, everybody. This is Vivian Xavier for another edition of Cinego Shorts artist discussions. And today we have Zeeshan Parwez with us, who is a very famous musician in Pakistan, a very famous filmmaker in Pakistan. He's been doing some really good work since the early 2000s. So we're, without further ado, I'm gonna start talking to him, and we're gonna get some really good insights about the music industry in Pakistan and his journey in music. Hey Zishan, how are you doing?
Hello. Hey, Vivian, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm so grateful that you took the time out. I know it's been difficult, but thank you for joining us and
No,
agreeing
thank
to
you so
talk
much for having
us.
me over, man. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, just to start off, Zishan, what's your journey in music been? Because I know that you started off as a musician, but you were also directing the music videos for that band. So, when did that interest come in you for music, for film, and what's your journey been?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me over the show, and I'll try to touch upon all the aspects of work that I've done musically as well. But sadly, I must confess that a lot of my musical projects have always been, you know, hindered because of the want to do visual projects, and because visual projects by and large have actually just supported me till now. So pretty much sometimes I won't say that for emotionally that they have any sort of preference of, or they actually have any sort of a higher status, but generally, when it comes to video, me myself being a filmmaker, a film director, and an animator as well, sometimes those projects take precedence over music projects. But anyways, I'll touch upon how I sort of started off and everything. I was as a kid, I've always been into keyboards, into playing synthesizers, inspired by my elder brothers, and music was pretty much generally appreciated, and always everyone was fond of music generally when I was growing up. I come from a Pakhtun family. Roots are from Charsada, which is a village on the outskirts of Peshawar, very well-known village. But we've always been, by and large, been settled in Peshawar, in the city. And while I was growing up, I grew up in Karachi and Rawalpindi, but predominantly in Karachi. And that's sort of where I sort of got just got in touch with building my skills in terms of playing synthesizers, etc. When I was growing up. And unfortunately, when my father passed away when I was 12 years old, we came back to Peshawar, and life was it was it stood still for a couple of years till a point came in the university times when I actually met a few gentlemen whom I hold very dear to my heart. They actually sort of persuaded me to sort of get in touch with my musical roots as well, and that was a friend of mine, Sarmat Ghafoor. He's a wonderful, well-known guitarist, and I would actually go on to make a band with his elder brother, Sajid Ghafoor, and we came up with a band, my very first band, called Sajid and Zeeshan. We're still out there, but we formed pretty much in 2003, 2004, sorry. So in 2004, we came up with a bunch of stuff from Peshawar. This was a time when there's a lot of musical representation happening from other cities of Pakistan, but not generally from Peshawar per se. And there would be representation, but in the form of Pashto songs, etc. And so we sort of we were comfortable with churning out English tunes, Sajid being the primary songwriter, and I would sort of take care of production, etc. And that's where basically sort of my musical journey sort of went forward. In the process, I did also sort of do productions for other indie bands here and there and stuff as well, but predominantly that's been one of my main things so far.
So, coming out of Peshawar, did you think that it would be because I like you said, you had already located. Your songs were obvious; they were electronic, with
Yeah.
keyboards, synthesizers,
Yeah.
and the lyrics were in English.
Yeah.
the lingua franca is Urdu. A lot of people do speak English, but did you think that it would somehow not be? I don't want to use the word recognize, but did you think that it would work against the band, or what was the philosophy of the band? When you guys were sort of putting your stuff out there.
Well, I mean, in our heart of hearts, we knew that we are pretty much the niche of niche, really, to be honest. I mean, at that time there were just a handful of um, English speaking acts, like English singing acts, sorry, in the mainstream, and we were one of them. But we knew that we would. It didn't really bother us, to be honest, because whatever it is, that Sajid, we didn't want to hinder it in any way, saying that we might want to do something in Urdu or etc. or something. But it just, I left it all completely to Sajid. Sajid is just brilliant when it comes to devising lyrics in English, and that's his mode of delivery, primary mode of delivery. And I never ever, and we never gave it a single another thought. Okay, we should sway away from that. We should be exactly the way we ought to be. And but we prepared. Okay, we will always remain a very small, tiny pebble in the whole industry, really. But what I can tell you is that we really took a lot of our time in devising a sound. Uh, I don't know to this day what that sound is really, but people turn with Sergeant Zeeshan sound and everything. Okay, but for me, that sound is just the blend of acoustica elements, perfectly amalgamated with electronic elements, and therefore you actually have a soundscape that at least infused with Sajid's lyrics, that it tends to be as vibrant as it can be. So when we came with some stuff back in 2004, it sort of touched upon those couple of things. And I was doing things like sampling and using electronic beats and sampling those, resampling those, and putting those things. And there's vinyl scratching in the album, etc. So and I feel, because since those things had not come out from Peshawar, so obviously then it sort of seemed very new and original, and etc. And uske saath saath bas, I guess that was the idea, to actually just deliver something from our side representing Peshawar.
Yeah, I think Peshawar or the wider country, I don't think anyone was doing something like that, to be honest. With
Um,
experimenting with not just the music and the lyrics, but the uh, the soundscape
They, they
of
were,
the
to be
entire
honest.
thing.
For the longest of times, I was made to believe that we were the ones who were sort of doing a lot of these things as well. But that's not right. I think upon a lot of other research that I did as well on other things as well, and there were a lot of acts in Karachi and
Oh,
in Lahore
okay.
who were doing some phenomenal stuff before we came on board, and that too was in with respect to electronic music, etc. And those guys were doing their own things at their own terms, etc. It was in the form of instrumental tracks, or tracks meant for global audiences, for DJ forums, in Europe, etc. So there was a lot of other cool stuff that was actually happening. This is in parallel to the indie underground scene as well. At the same time, we're talking a little bit about touching the electronic barrier right now. Indie, though,
Okay.
definitely there was happening. There was a lot of interesting stuff happening in Lahore, with a lot of indie
Mhm.
bands coming from Lahore, right? But with
Yeah.
electronica barrier, Karachi had a lot of. I keep on forgetting some of the names, but it just a couple of people that actually, if I would worthy mentions, Faisal Beg was doing a lot of DJing stuff back then. Before us, there was a gentleman, Faraz Haider. I forgot his very old name, who we meant by as well, but he was doing a lot of cool stuff as well at that same time. So yeah, there was stuff happening on the side.
Okay, perfect. In terms of the visual, because you said that that was something that piqued your interest as well. So a lot of the two things I want to touch upon before we go ahead. One is the
Yeah.
music videos you were directing for the band itself, and then also your debut album, which is One Light Year at the
Snail
At
speed.
snail speed.
Yeah.
I mean, I absolutely love the name.
Thank you.
What was the what was the sort of the kernel of the idea behind that name and the the album and
So it's that's a question more for Sajid, but I'll try to answer him on
okay.
his behalf as well, because he's a genius when it comes to sort of tongue twisters and naming and giving names to things and places and stuff. Um, I would say it's just a collection of memories of moments that bring realization into your life, and they sort of complete you in many ways. For me personally, if I would say, most of these songs are based on the fact that you take a inner look at yourself and you follow a path that you've chosen, and what no matter what the outcome is, whatever the outcome, whatever the future may hold, you just stick to it as well, and just dive into it. So there's a lot of things like songs like Freestyle Dive and King of Self. It's just, they talk about believing yourself and throw away that bag of gold, listen to what the music holds. It's just, just being living in the moment, and just believing yourself. So a lot of those patterns that Sajid thinks of, it's based on just believing yourself and self-realization.
Interesting. And the how did you get into directing the music videos? And um, that'll obviously lead up to my question about your
Yeah.
time in Canada as well, because you
Sure.
ended up going to film school over there. So if you can
Okay.
start with that, and then just
Sure. No worries. No worries. Um, So my love for music sort of transitioned over to video as well, because I found out that video editing is pretty much like audio editing. It's just that it has a visual layer to it, and therefore, I'm a bit of a technical person when it comes to sort of production, etc., and everything. Might not be top notch or anything, but in terms of editing, वगैरह जो understanding pacing, etc., in terms of music, I could translate that into video, and I had absolutely a lot of fun just making stuff, and उसके साथ साथ that sort of transitioned over. That was a perfect timing, because we were at a time when you could actually have access to digital tapes and have that, analog se hat gaye the. So we were actually in the time, this is like early 2000s we're talking about. We transitioned over to DV tapes, etc. That data could be then transcoded onto your computer, and then you could do whatever you would want.
yeah.
So using that, I would say, okay, obviously we made songs as well. And then we were saying, okay, yaar, karna kya hai iske saath abhi, what are we going to do with it? So the best thing was, okay, I told him, okay, you know what, I always wanted to be a filmmaker anyways, right? I really wanted to be a filmmaker. That's one of my childhood aspirations as well. But like I said, like when my father passed away, so I gave up on a lot of things really. So you tend to not, you stop believing in yourself really. You tend to stop believing in yourself unless you actually look back within yourself and decide to take a chance and take another dive and see, okay, what can be done about it. So I decided to sort of grab a camera from somewhere, hire a camera, thaka sa camera tha literally, and we just went in and made this whole storyline of two dudes who are basically just who are actually sponsored by a cigarette company. And then uske saath saath jo hai, then they basically we're putting them in different scenarios of basically look like as if those are cigarette ads, etc., etc. And that was just a part of just infusing. So what I'm trying to say is that was just a small experiment. But what I keep on telling everyone, like whenever I actually have talks with different people as well, I actually show them a chart, really, to be honest. Like if there's a creative, right? Like sometimes I actually had this talk a couple of months back where I actually just showed that the life of a creative with someone who actually wants to go into audio video as well. You actually can do so many things as well if you actually just put your hands into one project. Now I gave them an example of King of Self. Like through that video, I would become a director, I would become a DP, I would become a production assistant, I would become a production designer. I would actually do this all these things myself. Obviously, I sucked at it, but at least you have ground control. You have practical experience, and then you choose. Yeah, okay, this is what I enjoyed about it, and this is the process which I love, and this is something which I can actually see myself. If I put in my time and effort and hard work, I can actually enhance those skills. So through the Sajid and Zishan videos, a couple of videos down the line that I made, one of them was an animated video, which was also an endeavor, which was in 2005, which was, I don't know, like 3,000 handmade drawings. Like it gave me kidney trouble after 8 months, 7, 8 months, which was the freestyle that I've done. I don't exactly remember the number of frames, but that was something which we did. And uske saath then I actually got a lot of offers because there was a lot of buzz in the market as well. There's some innovative work happening in Peshawar as well. So I got a couple of offers from wonderful people like Mikal Hassan to make his videos. So I made a couple of videos for him, which were actually a wonderful, wonderful experience. That followed to me working with Ali Azmat, with Noori, and many other bands as well, many other indie bands, which I love to this day as well. Like I'm proud of some of the work for indie bands that I've done, and I can actually say that I can look back and actually say that I did support some of, at least I had a little bit of hand in helping some of the indie bands. That transitioned over to me being selected as a video producer for Coke Studio. Can I take names or?
Yeah. Please.
Okay, sure. So sometimes वो होता है क्या कि you can't take specific names.
Oh no, well, I mean, we're all about
Cool.
supporting the
Cool, awesome.
musicians
So,
all
I
over.
mean,
So yeah.
Awesome. So I became the video producer for Coke Studio for a couple of years. That was a wonderful, wonderful experience working with Ruel Hayat and his wonderful team and developing a format and developing a visual language for capturing live shows in a way that hadn't been done before. And that sort of became a workflow for years to come. After that, and uske saath saath I did a bunch of other things as well. One of them was Youth Records as well, program called Youth Records, which was with my friend Gambi, Louis John Pinto, and we did that thing as well in support of just helping out unrecognized talent, and there were 2 seasons that we did. After that, I went forward to Canada. I moved into Canada for a couple of years. I attended Vancouver Film School for a year, and a beautiful, beautiful experience. It was a beautiful experience. It was 2014, 2015, and I got a chance to actually meet some wonderful people around the world, collaborate with them, and the best thing about film school over there, at least in my experience, was that with the wonderful instructors that we had, I was just given instant knowledge of how North American cinema works. So you could actually use that knowledge and bring that to wherever you want and just sort of apply that, and it just improves workflow. It just improves coordination between. It largely, in my mind, it actually disciplined me further to actually be a team player rather than just be an individual and just focus on a specific department. I could actually understand the pros and cons of and the duties, responsibilities of each and every department in the whole filmmaking unit. And with that, I just became more of a team player rather than being an individual person. So I'm so sorry I keep on going, but I'm just pretty much.
That's completely fine. That's completely fine. That's
So and after VFS as well, I've worked in the local Vancouver industry as an editor. I was editing stuff here and there as well. So I mean, from that point onwards, I actually came to Pakistan because I thought I could do some interesting work over here, and there were other family things happening on the side as well. So it just sort of brought me back to Pakistan, and I knew that when I would come over here, I would actually make my own production company. So we came up with Studio Rokhan. Studio Rokhan is my production company that basically, like any other production company, we work for different people as well, work for hire, making long and short form content. And the other stuff is the weird stuff that we do in house. Dil ki bras nikalna, that's what you say. So, it's sort of like a two-way process, really. And through that, been able to do some stuff here and there for different organizations, which I'm so glad that the decision to come back home and do these things was a great idea.
So again, because you were talking about editing and in terms of music, how do you think your music has helped you, or your past experience as a musician has helped you transition into like editing, especially for a North American audience, and then when you went back, in terms of like the rhythm and the pace and all of that.
Sure.
So that's one thing that I'd love for you to touch on.
Sure.
But also in terms of the, because when you left, obviously there wasn't, or at least at that time, there were, the music industry was not as, it wasn't thriving as much as it was in the early years. And then, and now what's the difference been? Have you noticed anything in terms of like the kinds of musicians that are sort of going out there and doing their stuff in Pakistan?
Sure. So I'll try to answer the last question first. That's basically of exactly what were the differences between when I came back as well and everything. You have to understand, and I probably might not give you, and I must confess I might not give you a proper answer for this, because I'm somewhat labeled as an outsider. Like, I'm not an industry guy. I'm pretty much in Peshawar. But here's my opinion. I've seen the industry players here and there, and grown first with them in many ways throughout many years. And our industries have actually gone through major shifts in the early 2000s, when there was a massive boom of musical projects happening in the country. We were hit by terrorism. We were hit by such a big crunch that basically just shattered our security situation here in Pakistan, and because of that, things went down drastically. Businesses were affected. Album releases were not being done. Concerts were not being happening. So uske saath saath, that actually went for a couple of years. YouTube got cancelled. There was no more motivation at all to do those things. It's what all the musicians who actually have sustained themselves are just the bravest souls, really. It's just absolutely, it was difficult to function around these things. Also, I might add, television channels, music television channels went off air. 24 hours music channel aapki hoti thi, and now they weren't around. So all these things came into play because people did not want to invest in music anymore, with the exception of just a couple of music platforms, and that was pretty much it. There are a lot of fundamentals we can go on at length at what exactly sort of worked and what didn't work as well. The major shift that sort of came when I came back over here is that the Pakistani sound has become way much more interesting. I'm not saying it wasn't interesting before, but it's branched out in many ways. And
it's become more diverse now.
Exactly, much more diverse. We're not restricted to only the coined word fusion. Fusion mein hum kehte hain yaar, fusion hai and stuff as well. It's not that anymore. It's actually rich experimental music that is coming out from different places. A lot of communities up north in different villages have a voice now, and they're coming up with content. I hate the word content, but anyways, music stuff that is happening in different. So everyone has generally a voice as well. There was a huge वो दिल खैर दुखता भी है. I mean, there was a huge rock एक side होती थी पाकिस्तान की. That's diminished, but I mean, uske saath saath then there's other acts that have come out across as well. Digital platforms are here. I really can't say whether everything, all these things they can sustain themselves in the longer run or not and everything, but at least everyone generally is trying. And with the like the launch of Spotify sort of brings things closer to a global audience really. So a lot of our local guys and girls actually will have audiences all over the world through Spotify, etc. So just a matter of time that our हमारे भी जो लोग हैं and everything will probably have cool deals and stuff coming up as well internationally.
Perfect.
And
about the editing.
Come back to the first one. So as a kid, I've always listened to music scores in everything, really, to be honest, in everything. And those are the moments that stick with me every time I watch a movie. The music score, the perfect music score, just completes everything for me. And that is what sort of growing up when I was listening to those things, it generally didn't drive me towards film scoring, but I was largely a very musical person as well. I listened to a lot of music. I loved original OSTs, jo the soundtracks, jo the. So I would actually hunt down soundtracks of all these major movies and collect them more than bands ke albums as well, right? Because I had a strong association. Because the idea of actually having musical tracks placed in your favorite movie made by your favorite director, that was a complete package. So to this day, if I listen to, I won't say Quentin Tarantino, but I would say, okay, Werner Herzog made this movie, Nosferatu. You've seen that, right?
Yeah.
So Nosferatu has a very haunting music, two-part music that comes in as well, which I generally to this day, like whenever I'm animating and stuff as well, that's pretty much sometimes I'm listening to non-stop. It's two parts. It's the first part is by this track called Bruder das Schattens. I don't know if, I'm so sorry for my German track, but I don't know if that's the right pronunciation, by a band called Purple War. And the second one is a Wagner track. And it's just beautifully done. And that section is basically our main protagonist who actually goes towards Nosferatu's castle. That's a whole journey. So it's summed up in that musical piece. So for me, the whole movie aside, that moment just takes care of everything. One of my favorite movies is The Shawshank Redemption.
Oh yeah.
But
Brilliant
it would
film.
not have been the same had it not been for that wonderful score that binds everything together. So now coming towards editing. Now editing जो है इसके साथ साथ if you're a musician and you're working with different pulses and with different beat measures, etc., and everything, the idea to actually work with musicians and put your workflow into the editing mix actually is a cool experience, and that comes from, for me at least, when I was editing Joke Ranjan. Joke Ranjan is by Mikal Hassan. We made this video in 2005. And the idea was simple. Mikal, since I was a big fan of Mikal as well, Mikal said, okay, look, I have this track and I would like you to see what you can do with that. And I instantly do not want to do anything with that. To picturize you guys just doing a performance video on top of this. And he absolutely loved it. He said, okay, that's always what we wanted. So then when we picturized it, when we shot it, and we brought it all together, so the idea was to edit according to the beat, according to all in the track. And that was the general idea. And me and Mikal were pretty much on the same page. That's why sometimes when you look at that editing, so there was so much fun having that. Now, I'll go 2 steps further, is that whenever we make something right now, sometimes when you're actually pacing towards for a specific emotion. And in terms of music videos, if you look at because I come from a music video background, so you're trying to uh, create the perfect emotion at least for a certain segment of a track as well, and that usually comes with the pacing, the how the shots are paced. There are two things really. Whenever I'm directing videos, I sort of look at the visual chemistry between band members, etc., or the movement of the camera. And then I visualize, okay, let's suppose if I have a lot of a specific movement, and I would actually maybe put a bit of cuts in around that, before that or after that, to create a movement or a composition of all these tracks jumbled together. That would be a specific portion of the track to that would be just for the purpose of just making a specific putting out a specific emotion through movement. Really, I don't know if that actually answers your question, but what
No,
I'm
no,
trying to
I
say is
know.
that
It's
but through movement of one of the blocking of the actors or the people, the band members, with the perfect camera movement, as well as the rhythmic editing actually is just like करके जो ना, but then you actually have one thing, and that basically is enough to sort of give out a emotion, specific emotion that you're trying to give.
and so Zishan, my last question, because we are running out of time. My last
No worries.
question would be again. It's two parts. What has your musical influence been like? Obviously you started when you were a kid, and you were how did you get well versed in the music that you were beginning to perform? And obviously now there's a shift and it's diverse. What's the difference been since when you were a kid? Obviously we've been exposed to a lot of things, and can you talk a little bit about the bands that you see that are coming out, especially in the underground scene? I know that there's so many that are doing such wonderful work which is being recognized internationally. Do you see those people being recognized in the country itself? Is there even scope for that? What's going to happen with the music industry in the next 10, 15, 20 years? What do you see happening over there? Is it going to be dire or
Sure. Um, for your first question, the bands that have influenced me, I, 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 I listen to a lot of Western stuff, but I pretty much lived on 80s stuff from the 80s. So a lot of bands from the 80s like Def Leppard, Dire Straits, and man, the list goes on, to be honest. But just to name a few, um, Def Leppard, Dire Straits. In the 90s, it followed by bands like Massive Attack, DJ Shadow, even Radiohead as well. There was a DJ called, there still is a DJ called BT. He's one of my main influences. These are all the 90s guys. New Order, and the list goes on, really, to be honest. I've been avid listener of all these things. So I think you pick up small things from all these wonderful acts that you hear, and they become a big influence in your life. Brian Eno has been a major influence in my life. Um, Coming to your second question, so the people that I am listening to, I generally don't know. I really do hope that they actually have a wonderful um, global audience. They can find a global audience as well. But I know for a fact that they're just absolutely remarkable. They're just absolutely wonderful. Um, I avidly follow a band called Sikandar Kamandar. Um, it's fronted by a very talented guy called Nadir Shahzad. He's just absolutely wonderful. There's there's the most awesome Natasha Noorani. She's just absolutely doing wonderful. There's Taka Tak, amazing. Ali Suhail, brilliant. Faris Shafi, um, I love his rapping. I haven't heard anything about like where Abdullah Qureshi is just Abdullah Qureshi and Abdullah Siddiqui both. I love those guys. There's a lot of bands like these and solo artists whom I just can't get enough of, really, because they give me something that I wish I could hear back in while I was listening to Pakistani music growing up. And this is just, if you go through, and I would urge everyone should take their time out. Oh, a couple of other names, sorry. Janubi Khargosh, big fan, amazing. There's Gentle Robot, amazing. Um, Wisdom Salad, VIP. There's yeah, it goes on. Sorry of what you won't, but there's a couple of guys and stuff like this and everything. I may be missing a lot of people. What I'm trying to say is, I urge everyone, everyone should take time out and listen to this stuff. All the wonderful people that Pakistan should be listening to, and just support them in any way you can, and because they're just absolutely wonderful. And इंडस्ट्री के बारे में मैं कुछ कह नहीं सकता. But I do know कि actually I can't answer that question. I'll tell you why, because I'm just I would say something that would just not make any sense. But I can tell you, I wish for more international collaborations, more international companies coming over here in Pakistan and actually picking up talent from here and utilizing them to the best of their abilities in certain spots, and it's not if it can happen in film, in television, etc. It can definitely happen in music as well, for sure. It's really easy. It's just making those connections and stuff as well. So I really do hope that the stuff that was actually happening pre-COVID as well picks up again. Right now, the world is just in a very, very difficult place right now, but I hope when everything is fine, so these relationships and these everything can actually get together exactly and actually churn out stuff.
Perfect. Well, Zeeshan, thank you so much. I do appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and giving us such wonderful insight and talking about your journey in music.
Thank you so much, man.
We wish you all the best, and I can't wait to see. I mean, I personally am a big fan of all the animation that keeps coming out of your studio.
Thank you.
So I really can't. I can't wait for what you produce. I hope that one of those animations is like a feature length one, because I know that I'm going to be buying a ticket to go to the cinema to watch that for sure.
Thank you so much.
But you're welcome. But yeah, best of luck to you, and for everything that happens in the future, and hopefully one day we can actually meet each other in person and talk about 80s music.
Absolutely.
Because I'm a big fan of that as well.
Right now. I know you're in Vancouver right now. Just I miss Vancouver so much, man. Like literally, if you ever get a chance, just go out and have a sushi or pho or anywhere, man. Just yeah.
I've actually moved to Toronto now, but
okay.
I know it's Vancouver is just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
A little rainy, but
yeah.
It's just absolutely beautiful. But yeah, hopefully in the future, our paths cross and we can sit and talk about music and film and all the good stuff that comes out of there.
Absolutely, man.
Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you so much, man. Take care.
You're welcome. You too. Take care. Stay safe. Bye.
Thanks, man. Take care. Bye.